He was always talking. All the time. Words came out of him like a grain sack, haphazardly, loudly, enthusiastically. Lucas was 6, and he knew more about dinosaurs than I knew about myself. Every morning began with another discovery. Daddy, did you know that Triceratops couldn't chew? No, I didn't. It was also almost like a tank, only with horns. I used to nod, inserting, cool, wow, while I drank my coffee and tried not to be late for work. Sometimes, to be honest, it was annoying. I was tired, I wanted quiet. And then it came. It was a normal morning. Jenna was at the stove, mooing to herself, humming a tune from a commercial. Lucas was eating his cereal, leaning his elbow on the table, chewing and talking about how today he was going to make the coolest craft in the garden. I kissed him on the top of his head, said goodbye, and he shouted after me, Dad, I love you. But more dinosaurs. I laughed and walked away without even turning around. For the first time, this is important, I didn't turn around. At 11 a.m., I got a call from my daycare teacher, Susan. Her voice was wary. I'm sorry, Mark, but there's something wrong with Lucas. He hasn't spoken to anyone since this morning. Not a word. Doesn't even say hello. I've tried, gently, kindly. He just stares at the floor. I frowned. Maybe he's tired. Or sick. He's cheerful. He doesn't look sick. It's just, like he's off. I arrived early to pick him up. He was sitting on the floor in the corner of the playroom, fiddling with some plastic cube. When he saw me, he got up, came over, gave me a hug. Silently. No smile, no, hi, Daddy. Just his eyes, round, deep. Too deep for a 6-year-old. Lucas, is everything okay? I asked him in the car. He looked at me. He didn't say anything again. At home, Jenna shrugged, maybe stress. He's sensitive, isn't he? I said it didn't look like stress. It's like a light switch. Like something snapped off. She snorted, you're being dramatic. Sometimes kids just get tired. Shut down. It's normal. The next day it happened again. And the day after that. They put cartoons on Lucas, he didn't react. They called him to play, he didn't say a word. He didn't cry. He wasn't cranky. He just became a shadow. A 6-year-old shadow with adult eyes. We went to the pediatrician. Then to a psychologist. Then a neurologist. The diagnosis sounded strange, selective mutism. They said it could be a reaction to stress, that it was temporary. But as time went on, Lucas just got quieter. Not quieter, quieter. It was like he was moving away from us. Not in hysterics, not in pain, just going inside himself. Sometimes I'd overhear him playing with his toys. He didn't do dialogue like he used to. He just moved the pieces around. Silently. Sometimes he'd stand still for half an hour without blinking. He would sit by the window, holding a soft bunny in his hands, and not move. It wasn't just weird. It was frightening. I started to notice that he was avoiding Jenna. Not explicitly. But when she walked into the room, he tensed up. He'd hunch his shoulders. He tried not to be alone with her. I've been paying attention. One day I heard him whisper to himself before he went to sleep, don't talk. Don't make her angry. Don't make her angry. I didn't ask, I was afraid of the answer. 3 weeks later, he started drawing. Not that he hadn't drawn before, but now the drawings were different. Dark colors. Strange shapes. One showed a boy under a table. On another, a black figure with long arms. Her eyes burned red. He brought one of these drawings to his grandmother. She looked at it and turned pale. Mark, this isn't fiction. He's afraid of something. Or someone. I talked to the kindergarten teacher. She said she once asked Lucas how he was doing. He pointed to his throat and clenched his fingers like he wasn't allowed to speak. Not, don't want to. It was, can't. Like someone had set a condition. I talked to Jenna again. Told her I was scared. That I wanted to understand. She rolled her eyes, looked away, but then she said, "I'm not touching him. I don't know why he's not talking. Maybe he's mentally unstable, have you thought about that?" I froze. It was the first he said as something other than our son. As someone else's. The next morning, as I was getting ready for work, he came over and handed me a piece of paper. There was a house drawn on it. Black. No windows. With a crooked door. A lightning bolt above the house. Inside, a small silhouette with a sad face. And a sign that says, "It's quiet in here." I was late for work. I took him to the counselor and stayed for the session. He didn't say a word. But when they gave him plasticine, he molded a figure of a woman with a pointy nose and a broken neck. The psychologist looked at me and said, "He's not faking it. He's not sick. He's afraid." I drove home. My fingers were shaking. And I had this thought in my head. What if I've been looking for the problem in the child all this time, and it's been with the adult all this time? We moved into the house when Lucas was 5. It was small, cozy, with a small yard and a wooden staircase that creaked with every third step. Jenna had chosen it. She liked the high ceilings and the bright kitchen. I liked that it was only 7 minutes from school. Lucas liked that there was a maple tree behind the house that he said was inhabited by the good wind. He was still talking then. Now he was afraid to sleep in his room. I didn't notice it right away. He didn't complain, he didn't ask. He just started falling asleep with his clothes on. With a flashlight in his hand. One time I went in to see him at night, he was sitting on his bed, not under a blanket, in silence, and looking in the corner. I asked him what was wrong. He didn't answer anything. Only squeezed the flashlight harder. I lay down next to him. He didn't move. He breathed unevenly, as if he was waiting for something. One night I woke up to a sound, quiet but distinct. A creak. Not the stairs. Not the doors. Footsteps. Right behind the wall. I got up, walked down the hallway. It was dark. The moon was shining through the window on the stairs. On the floor, by the door to Lucas's room, stood Jenna. Barefoot. With her hands down at the seams. She stood staring at the door. I flinched. "Jen." She turned around slowly. "What? What are you doing?" I was just seeing if he was asleep." "He's fine. I asked Lucas this morning if he'd had a dream. He didn't answer. He just drew a picture. A woman's figure. A dark hallway. And the caption, 'She's watching.' I started staying home at night. Jenna said it was overkill. That I was starting to make enemies in the family. But I couldn't stop. On my day off, I took Lucas to the park. There, he perked up a bit. He swung around, looked at the dogs, even tried to draw a tree in the sand with a stick. Grandma came later, we had arranged to meet up. She brought him some juice and said, "You know he doesn't go to her when she calls. He waits for her to come out. He's afraid. Do you see that?" I nodded. Because I've seen it before. That night when we got back, I noticed the house was too quiet. Jenna was in the bedroom. I took Lucas to the shower. While he was washing his hands, I saw a bruise. On the inside of his elbow. It wasn't fresh, it was yellow, almost gone. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. But inside, something broke. We had dinner. Jenna was smiling. Asked Lucas if it was good. He nodded. Eyes down. The fork in his hand felt foreign. He ate slowly. As if every movement was being watched. Then he went to his room. I followed. I opened the door. He was sitting on the floor, hugging his knees. Whispering. To himself. The words were barely audible. But I could make out, "Don't say anything. Don't make her angry. Don't make her angry." Repeating it like an incantation. Like he knew if he said one word, it would all be over. I went out. My heart was pounding in my ears. I sat down in the kitchen. Jenna was washing dishes. I stared at her back. At the smooth movements of her hands. The calmness. And I thought, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just stress. Maybe he's intimidated, by school, by the movie, by the dreams, but then I remembered, he was never afraid of the dark. He laughed when it thundered. He loved it when I did scary voices. He didn't know what real fear was, until recently. The next day I spoke with the counselor again. She asked, has something changed in your house? Has someone appeared or, conversely, disappeared? I hesitated. Then I said, no. Everything is as it was. I lied. Because I realized if I said I suspected my wife, I'd ruin everything. Or save it. But maybe it was too late. I couldn't concentrate at work. I started rereading articles. About childhood trauma. About mutism. About silent abuse. Too many coincidences. Too many warning signs. Jenna denied everything. She looked me in the eye and said, Mark, you're driving yourself crazy. You want to blame me because you can't admit that he's just sick. But I knew, he's not sick. He's scared. And all he wants is to be heard. That evening, I asked Jenna, did you yell at him? Did you hit him? She froze. Then she laughed. Are you serious? I hit him. Do you even hear yourself? No, Mark. This is crazy. You're out of your mind. You don't even know what's happening to him and you're looking for someone to blame. Maybe you want to look in the mirror. She went into the bedroom and slammed the door. I stayed in the kitchen. Alone. With this emptiness in my chest. I opened my laptop and ordered a small hidden camera. I didn't sleep that night. Staring at the ceiling and hearing him whispering again somewhere in my son's room. Whispering things adults don't want to hear. After Lucas stopped talking, the house became different. Even the lights seemed dim. It was as if the lamps had conspired to work at half power. The sounds became sharper, the creak of floorboards, the flick of a light switch, the coughing behind the wall. But most importantly, the laughter disappeared. Childish, tinkling, uncertain. It was just gone. Along with Lucas's voice. Psychologists advise alternative forms of self-expression. Games, sand, drawings. Anything that doesn't require words. I bought him pencils, felt-tip pens, paints. I spread the paper on the floor. He didn't come near it for a long time. He just stared. Then one day, early in the morning, I went into his room. He was sitting on the floor, with 3 drawings lying around him. One was in gray, with almost no lines. Just one figure, a child huddled in a corner. The second was a room with a black spot in the center. No windows. No doors. Just a shadow in the corner. And the third. The third was the most frightening. There was a woman on it. Elongated. Unrealistic. Arms too long, eyes like holes. No pupils, no eyelids. Just blackness. And the mouth is huge and crooked. Lucas signed this drawing. One word. She. I held the sheet, and my fingers trembled. I tried to ask, what is this? Who is this? But he just shook his head and hid his face in his lap. I went to the kitchen and poured myself some water. The glass trembled in my hand. I knew I couldn't deny anything else. I showed the drawings to my grandmother. She pressed her palm to her lips and cried. That was her first reaction. Not, it must be fantasy, not, kids love scary stories. Tears. Real ones. She said, it's not just fiction, Mark. It shows what he can't say. It's his way of screaming. I made a decision, put a camera in his room. A hidden one. I didn't want to believe it would come to this. That I, a grown man, a father, would watch my family. But I couldn't live in speculation any longer. I ordered a small camera with night vision. Installed it in the bookshelf. Checked the angle, I could see the bed, I could see the table. Everything I needed. A day later, the first footage showed up. Jenna said she was leaving to meet a friend. I stayed with Lucas. I tucked him in, turned off the light, said goodnight. He nodded. Not a smile, just a nod. Half an hour later, I sat down at my laptop and started watching. The video showed the room. Silence. Lucas is lying there, eyes open. Just staring at the ceiling. 5 minutes, nothing. Then the door creaks open. He turns his head sharply. Jenna walks into the room. I don't get it, when did she get back? She said she left. I rewind a little, and sure enough, the front door didn't open. So she never left. She was just waiting for me to go to bed. On the tape, she walks over to the bed. She stands. She doesn't say anything. Then she speaks. I said don't draw that. Do you want Daddy to start asking questions? Lucas doesn't move. Lies there, shrunken. Jenna continues. You're a bad boy. Bad boys aren't loved. Bad boys get left behind. Do you want to be left behind? Her voice is flat. Cold. No yelling. Just, like it's a common phrase. Lucas shrinks back. Slowly slides off the bed and hides under it. The camera can't see him there, but you can see Jenna lean in and speak. Sit tight. Until I tell you. You got it. I stopped the video. I went to the bathroom. I threw up. It was like a punch. In the chest. In my heart. My back. I couldn't believe this was happening to me. To my son. I turned the tape back on. Jenna's coming out. Calmly. Like she was saying goodnight. I sat there not knowing what to do. Should I call the police? Make a scene? Yell? But Lucas was asleep. Or trying to. And I knew that if I started screaming now, he'd hide inside himself again. For good. I went out into the hallway. Knocked on our bedroom door. Jenna answered. She smiled. You in bed already? All I said was, we need to talk. She came into the living room. I turned on the tape. All the way through. Without interrupting. She watched. At first, calmly. Then pale. Then she looked away. It's dash, she began. It's not what you think it is. He was making noise all the time. Screaming. I didn't know what to do. I was getting migraines. You're always at work. He was always talking. I wanted some quiet. And you decided to scare him into complete silence. I whispered. She didn't answer. She just sat down. And cried. Silently. I called custody. It was hell. Paperwork, explanations, visits. I took Lucas. I told him we'd go to a new place. That it would be just the two of us. He didn't answer. He just took my hand. Tight. In a way he hadn't done in a long time. We moved into a rented apartment. It was small. But bright. I bought him a new nightlight. Dinosaur bedding. A new desk. And a big paint set. He wouldn't talk. But sometimes he'd come up and point, this one, for the paint. This one here, for the picture. I learned to understand him again. Through gestures. Through breathing. I started taking him to another psychologist. He said. It's a long road. But if he says, yes, or, Daddy, once, you've already won. I went back to the tapes. Sometimes I looked at them so I wouldn't forget. So I don't start to doubt. Because there are moments when Jenna's voice comes back into my head, soft, persuasive, you're over-dramatizing, Mark, and I watch the video. And I remember, no. I'm not over-dramatizing. I hear a scream. No sound. From my own son. Watching the tape the second time was even harder than the first. The first time, you can still hope you made a mistake. That it's a montage, that you've misunderstood, that everything will be explained at the end. The second time, you just admit it. There's no way out. It's true. It happened. And it happened to your child. In your house. While you were working late. While you thought you were protecting your family. I tried to remember where it started. When she changed. When the Jenna I knew disappeared. Maybe I just never knew her. I met her in college. She was quiet, observant. She read a lot. She spoke little, but she spoke well. I fell in love quickly. It seemed to me that she knew what she wanted, while I knew nothing at all at that time. We were married a year later. Lucas came along almost immediately. She was a good mother. Caring, careful, attentive. Yes, she was tired sometimes, but who isn't? I turned a blind eye to her irritability. The way she'd say to Lucas, "Don't bother Mom," or "You've ruined everything again." I thought it was fatigue. Postpartum. Work. Life. I didn't pay attention. Now I rewatched the video and saw something different about her. Not fatigue. Not irritation. Something almost mechanical. Like she wasn't talking to her son, she was programming him. Every time she uttered the phrase, "They don't like the bad ones," my insides clenched. How many times had she said it? How many times had he heard it, before I heard nothing? The next night, I decided to stay with Lucas in his room. We assembled a tent out of blankets between two chairs, put pillows in there, and turned on a nightlight with a projection of stars. He didn't smile, but he didn't hide. He sat next to me. Quiet. I started reading him a story. An old one about a king who lost his voice. Halfway through the book, I felt him lean into me. Just resting his head on my shoulder. No sound. Just warmth. And a tear. One. I didn't ask anything. I just hugged her. The psychologist said, he needs time. And stability. He needs to believe that fear no longer lives in his house. I started taking him to the park every day. We rode bikes. We built sand castles. I freelanced so I could be home. I stopped watching the news. I stopped sitting on my phone. I was just there for you. Not always perfect. But close. On the third week of our new regimen, I got an email. From Jenna. No, hi, no, sorry. Just a few paragraphs. I know what you're thinking about me. And you're probably right. But you left us, too. Not physically. Mentally. When I was up nights, you were dozing in front of the TV. When Lucas asked why you didn't pick him up in the garden, I told him you were busy, even though you'd just forgotten. I'm not making excuses for myself. But I couldn't do it anymore. Sometimes love doesn't die from hate. But from emptiness. I reread the letter 3 times. And realize that it's not an apology. It's an explanation. Or an attempt to convince myself that it wasn't that simple. But I couldn't play it anymore. Because I saw my son's face as he hid under the table. And it wasn't about, you forgot to pick him up. It was about pain. Deep. Cutting. A day later, I got a call from Child Services. A checkup. Jenna filed a countercomplaint. Said I was manipulating the baby against her. That Lucas stopped talking long before the conflict. I showed the video. I sent a psych evaluation. They apologized. But they warned me it could be a long process. Court. License. Paperwork. I nodded. I'm ready. Anything for him. In the evening, we lay in the tent again. Lucas was holding his favorite stuffed toy, a dinosaur named Murphy. I said. You can keep quiet forever if you want. I still understand you. He looked at me. And put his head on my shoulder again. I'm here, I said. And I'm not leaving. And suddenly, almost inaudibly, he whispered. Really? I froze. He had spoken. He speaked it. It's true, son. He did. I cried. Not loudly. No hysterics. Just tears. From my eyes, from my heart, from the past year. It was the first step. 3 weeks had passed since the night Lucas had said his first word. Really? It was a whisper, almost a shadow of a word. But it had more meaning in it than all the therapy, the reports, the conversations with lawyers, the endless clarifications and explanations. It was a question. And at the same time, my first attempt to believe again. I waited for those words. I didn't insist. I didn't beg. I just waited. Sometimes he looked at me with such attention, as if he were scanning to see if I was still around, if I was still the same, if I would disappear. And if I suddenly got distracted or went to the window, he would quietly get up and come closer. Silently. Just to be in sight. So I wouldn't lose him. Because in his little heart there was a simple truth: if you can't see it, it can disappear. We moved to another apartment. It was smaller, but quieter. There were no shadows, no familiar smells, no doors that slammed when we fought. Everything was new. Even the wallpaper. Even the light. Even the silence. Especially the silence. It wasn't the silence of fear now. It was a silence in which a voice could grow. I took Lucas to the park every day. He no longer looked at the other kids with envy, now he just looked. And sometimes, drawing them. He started drawing again. Not just the black and gray figures. Now there were blue trees. Green clouds. Red hands reaching upward. One day he drew a figure, not black, but gray, standing next to a little boy, and wrote at the bottom, "That's Daddy." I couldn't take it. I cried right there in the kitchen. Sometimes he and I would just lie on the floor. We'd make a tent out of blankets. He called it the world without doors. I asked him why. He wouldn't answer. But one day he whispered. Because no one can come in if you don't let them in. He started asking about school. About the stars. About how bread is made. He asked, and wondered what he was saying. It was as if each new word was an effort, but a joy. He was pleased with himself. The trial with Jenna was slow. She'd asked for custody, then joint custody, then she'd disappeared. Lawyer said she'd moved to another state. Probably to stay with her sister. Maybe to start over. I didn't know. I didn't want to know. What struck me most was not the way she left, but the indifference with which she left. No tears. No letters. Just a notice through a solicitor. I won't be claiming. Good luck to you. As if this was about a furniture dispute, not the boy who'd once called her mom. Lucas started talking in his sleep. Sometimes. He mumbled the names of toys. Sometimes he'd call my name. Sometimes just words with no connections: book, water, mommy. But he didn't get scared. He didn't wake up in a sweat. He didn't hide under the table. For Father's Day, he drew a card. It had 2 sticks on it, one bigger, one smaller. And a caption. I'm not alone. And neither are you. I took that card and put it in a frame. In the most prominent place. Above the bed. Above all the pictures and gifts and diplomas and papers. Because no paper in the world meant as much to me as that drawing. And one night, as we were lying in the tent in the evening, I said. You know, you can say whatever you want to say now. He nodded. Then looked me in the eye. For a long time. Too long for a 6-year-old boy. You're not going to leave again? Never, I answered. I promise. He pressed against me. And whispered. Can I just be me, then? I didn't say anything. Just hugged him tighter. Because sometimes the only right answer is to be. To just be there. I thought he shut up for no reason. Turns out he yelled every day. Just, not out loud.